think over the next 12 months, the big issue will be the election. I think there's some political uncertainty. This government has been, by and large, supportive, certainly attempting to help on the supply side. So any question about whether they are returned, particularly the Conservatives, would cause some doubt. Labour's policies are not as well formed, and of course they may be taking a coalition with somebody else. So there's some uncertainty. Having said that, the market's going well. I think people, or the industry is enjoying a fairly good period. It surged at the beginning of the year and it's settled. So I think it will be okay, but there is some uncertainty around the politics, I think. Yes, well, of course, classically, even over this difficult period of the last few years, London in particular has bucked a lot of the trends, you know, for the obvious reason it's a global city. It's almost, you know, disconnected from the rest of the nation. The South East was obviously the first place to start benefiting from an improvement in the market. So maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you had a situation with London and the South East was faring better. And I've certainly spoken to house builders who were very happy, and then you'd speak to a Midlands-based house builder and they'd say, oh, we've seen nothing yet. But Help to Buy and a lot of the actions put through have been nationwide, certainly England-wide. There's now Help to Buy Wales as well. So that is helping to spread. So there is an improvement in the market. London, I understand, the froth has come off a little bit, but I think that's all relative. I think the London market still stands slightly separate. South East going well, and other areas of the country now, if not catching up, certainly starting to benefit a bit from the general improvement. I think on interest rates, I think the market will factor in the fact that they will increase in the next period. The question, of course, is how much and how quickly. And if they go too quickly, too fast, then the market will feel the pain of that. Even when Mark Carney, I think it was in June, just hinted at interest rates rise, you saw the effect not only in the city, but in the market. You know, there's a hypersensitivity. It's interesting that, you know, those of a bit more age, such as myself, just can't believe how low interest rates are. But there is a new generation who thinks this is the norm, and they will be shocked when they see the rises and the effects on their pocket. And I think that has to be managed. There's no doubt that Carney has to do what's right for the economy. That's his job. And therefore, as I say, I suppose it's likely interest rates will rise given the wider economic situation. But if he does it in a controlled way, I think the market will be able to cope with that. It's not going to be good news, but they'll be able to cope. He's also got his, and it's a new word for me this year, macroprudential tools that he's using, as you say, on the mortgage market and other areas. As I understand it, if you talk to the big house builders, they're saying that that's not really been an issue, that, you know, they were ready for it, that they haven't lost clients through the changes to the mortgage market rules. Some of the smaller house builders classically, because they're right on the front line, they don't have whole departments that can get them ready for this. I did hear anecdotally that they'd lost, you know, some sales. So those sort of tools will also be applied, and they will have an effect, because that's sort of the idea. I guess the idea is for Carney to look after the wider economy without damaging the housing market too much. Any election year causes some uncertainty in the housing market and probably in the wider economy, because whatever the result, there's uncertainty about what that result might be. And also, political parties change slightly around elections. I mean, will remember well, before the last election, the Conservatives were introducing localism ahead of the election in the anticipation that they were going to win. So that caused quite a lot of effect. I remember listening to the potential policies of the shadow housing minister then, Grant Shapps, and thinking, good Lord, this isn't going to work. When they actually came in, although they did bring in some of those policies, they quite quickly adapted to find policies that actually suited the aim of trying to improve housing supply. The point being, though, around that election period, approaching it and after it, there was uncertainty. So I don't think it really matters whatever anybody thinks might happen. I think there will be some political uncertainty. The poll itself, the election itself, I think looks like potentially one of the most fascinating ever. You would say, if you said it's the economy, stupid, then the Conservatives really should win. I mean, their growth rates compared to the Eurozone, for instance, are good. Unemployment's coming down. So that would suggest a victory for the Conservatives. But of course, we have the UKIP factor and what that means. How's that going to affect? Would that affect the Conservatives more? You would think so, but it may affect Labour too. Very uncertain. So no, I'm not going to predict the result of the election, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a coalition or even a second election in the year. Will Help to Buy survive the election? I think yes. I'm going to go for yes on this. I think if the Conservatives get in, then, I mean, Help to Buy equity loan is what I'm talking about. So if we can stick with that, the equity loan part, which very much affects the private new build sector. The mortgage guarantee thing, I think, has got a little bit undermined. So I'd expect that to be modified or moved away, whatever happens, whoever. The equity loan side, well, the Conservatives have said they'll extend it to 2020, so yes. I would be surprised if Labour scrap it. I think they'll modify it. The 600,000 price limit might become 300,000. But again, I think it will survive. How long? With Labour, I don't know. Would they say 2022? There's a bit of uncertainty there. But if you're asking me to stick my neck out, Help to Buy equity loan, yes, will survive. All the political parties have made it clear, or the main political parties, that housing supply has got to be increased. I find it a little frustrating because it's quite easy to say it. We were at a conference, I think you were there yourself, we were at a conference where the Conservative spokesman said we want to build 200,000, actually the coalition spokesman, to be fair, we want to build 200,000 homes a year, and the Labour guy said we want to build 300,000. And I just thought, you can't just say these words, what are you going to do? A lot of the policies are obviously designed to generate supply from the private sector. But there's a limit to what the private sector can do. I mean, we can go down that whole route of labour and material shortages in this country, which is a major threat. There's a limit to what the private sector can do. Historically, there's been a limit. So are they willing to actually put money into it? Public sector money? Well, as I understand it, there isn't any. So if you're asking me, do I think in 5 years' time we'll be hitting that 250,000 plus homes a year? No. But it will improve a little bit. There will be, a move forward in the numbers.